In this video, we will try to understand what is the difference between equal to and dot equals. So in other words, when we do comparison, if you see in C#, we have one is you can say, okay, is I equal to Y like this, or you can say is I equals to Y. So the question is that what is the difference between both of these methods of comparison in C#? Is equal to and the dot equals helps us to do comparison, right? Now let us try to understand that how does a human brain compare things. When you and me take two things and when we start to compare, how do we approach that? If you see a human brain, it compares things in two ways. One is technically and the other one is semantically. Okay, what do I mean by that? Now, when you say to a human that is 1 equal to 1, he will use his mathematical knowledge and he will say, yes, 1 is equal to 1. And this 1 equal to 1 is true with me, with my friends, with my brother, with my sisters, with everyone in India, in US, everywhere, wherever you go, 1 is equal to 1, right? So it is a mathematical comparison, right? And if you put before me alphabets, for example, if you say, okay, is Shiv equal to Shiv? I will say, yes, they are equal because both of the patterns are matching. So second, again, when you put before human some kind of a letter or a word or a sentence, he will try to compare them word by word, alphabet by alphabet, length by length, and then he again says that yes, both of the things are equal. So one way, how human compares things is technically. Technically means if they're exactly matching mathematically or pattern wise, they say that the things are same. But the other way, how humans do comparison is semantically. Now, semantically means, for example, if I say that, okay, this is the last stop, or if I say this is the final destination. Now, last stop and final destination, are one and the same thing semantically. Okay, semantically means, if you see the English meaning of semantics, it means the inner meaning of it. Okay, so semantically, final destination and last stop is one and the same thing for me. But if I compare them technically, they are different, right? Because pattern wise, the letters are different, the words are different, right? For example, 1 is not equal to 70, but $1 is equal to 70 rupees. Right? So semantically, $1 is equal to 70 rupees, but technically, mathematically, 1 is not equal to the 70 number, right? So if you see, human use two ways of comparing things. One is the technical way, accurate way, scientific way, mathematical way, pattern way, and in technical way, one human cannot differ from the other human, right? And the second way of comparison he does is by using semantics. Semantics means that there are certain rules, there are certain business rules involved in comparing things. Now the equal to and the dot equals, both of them by default do technical comparison. So in other words, either you are using a value type or either you are using a string type, right? It will always do technical comparison. So if he finds this is numeric, he will do the mathematical comparison. If he finds it is a string, he will do the comparison on the base of the content or on the base of the pattern. So for example, over here you can see now I is equal to 10 and Y is also equal to 10. So here this I equal to Y will be true, and even this I dot equals to Y will be true. So both of them will be true. So it will actually use the mathematical way of doing comparison. So if you're using primitive types like integer and decimal and so on, boolean, etc., value type especially, it will actually do a kind of a mathematical comparison. So if I do a control F5 over here, you can see that both of them is true, right? And if this was a string, so if I go and make this as a string, let us say I say string I and I say string Y. So over here now he will use the string based comparison and he will actually try to compare on the pattern, right? So if I do a control F5, again you can see that it is true, right? So basically by default, both equal to and dot equals, they do technical comparison. But now these string, integer, boolean, double, these are just simple single value. So technical comparison is very, very easy on them. But now let us say that we say, okay, we want to compare objects. For example, now let us say that we have a class here called as person, right? And it has a name property. Okay. So now if I say that I want to go and compare a person object, now that's where C# says that how I can go and compare objects, because when you say object can have a lot of properties. It can have name, it can have first name, last name, identification number, and so on. So going and comparing each one of these properties does not make sense for C#, right? So what he says is that if you tell me to compare objects, I will do the comparison using the references. That means internally, wherever the object internal memory is allocated, I will try to compare the memory addresses of both the objects. So now let us say I go and I create an object here called as person, and let us say I give the name here as Shiv, right? So let us say I give the name here as Shiv. I create one more object here, let us say obj1, and in that object also I give the name as Shiv, right? So here also it is Shiv. Now in this case, even if the names are equal, right, computer says that for me still these are both different things. Now remember that we are comparing objects. In object-oriented programming, what do you mean by an object? An object is a thing in the real world, and in real world these things can have a unique identity. So for example, when I say this obj person name is Shiv and this obj1's person name is Shiv, so he can be Shiv from Nepal, he can be Shiv from India, right? So basically both of these people, right, in real world can have the same name, but they are different people, right? So thinking from the perspective of object-oriented programming, what C# does by default, when you go and you say that okay, is obj equal to obj1, he says that these both are two different things. In other words, even if the values of the properties are same, I still consider them different because these are real world objects and I don't know how to compare them, right? So what he says that I will go and compare them on the basis of references. In other words, what he does internally, this object is allocated somewhere on a heap and there is a memory pointer for this object. This obj1 is also allocated on a heap and there is a memory pointer for it, and both of these memory pointers are different, right? So he goes and he compares the memory pointers and he does not compare on the basis of the data, right? So what happens over here, when I do a control F5, even if the property values are same, you can see that he is saying that both of them are false. So when you are comparing objects, right, the object equality is determined technically by the computer or by C# by using the references, right? For example, over here to this obj, if I go and say obj, if I pass this person over here, now it will say that both of them are same because the pointers are same. You can see over here it is showing true and true because now the memory address of obj and obj1 are one and the same, right? So in short, when it comes to value based comparison, single values like string, integer, boolean, double, it follows either numeric or a pattern based comparison. But when it comes to object based comparison, for example like person object and customer object, it compares on the basis of memory addresses, or I will say references. But now let us say that I have a ID number over here, right? Let us say that his name is Shiv, his name is Shiva, right, whatever it is, and internally I give a ID number as 1001, right? Here also I give an ID number as 1001, right? Now semantically, or from the real world perspective or from the business perspective, both of these objects are actually same because their ID number is same. So you can see the name is Shiv here, the name is Shiva, but must be there is a spelling mistake or something, but both of these people are same because their identification number is same, right? So you can see now by default, because when computer compares objects, or when C# compares objects either by equal to and dot equals, he actually says that both of them are different. So you can see that by default, oh sorry, this is new person. So by default, following the rule of object-based comparison, he says that both of them are false, but semantically, but as per my real world perspective, or from my my business perspective, actually both of these people are same because their identification number are same. So in other words, technically they are different, but semantically they are the same. So what C# does, C# has given you this equals override. So he says that, okay, here it is, go ahead and override the equals method and specify your semantic comparison logic over here. So now over here, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, person P is equal to person obj, right? So I can do something like this. I can say that if this P dot's ID number is equal to the current ID number, this dot ID number, then this is true, or else this is false, right? So I'll say, okay, it is false if the ID numbers are not same, or else it is true, right? Now what will happen is, if you see now, this equal to over here is doing a technical comparison using references, right? Okay, internal references. But this comparison over here is semantic, right? Semantic comparison. That means there is some kind of a business rule which decides what is equal. So if I do a control F5, you can see now the first one is showing false, right? But the second one is showing true. It is saying that no, from the real world perspective, these both people are same because their ID numbers are same. But the equal to says that I don't understand your real world semantics. I'm a computer. So from my perspective, both of them are different. Also adding over here, you can definitely go and override the equal to. So by using operator overloading, you can go and override this equal to logic, and you can make it a semantic comparison if you want. If you want, you can do that. The framework does not stop you to do that, right? But here is my thought. If you look from the programming perspective, or from the basis of syntaxes, right? This equal to is a operator. It's a C# operator, right? And this dot equals over here is a polymorphic method, which is doing method overloading. In other words, it is an object oriented programming concept. So if you ask me logically, where should I put my semantic comparison, then definitely I will put it over here in the equals. And where should I put my technical comparison? If I wish it to be different, then I will put it in this dot equal to. So the basic difference, if you ask me, between equal to and dot equals by default is nothing. They both are exactly same. But when there are times when you say that no, now there are some business rules which I want to apply when you check for equality, at that time you go and you override the equals method, and then you start using the dot equals. So in other words, if I put in simple sentence, as a developer, use equal to, because that is most of the time that is where your answer is, and that is what you want to do logically. But the time you say that, okay, now I want to do some custom comparison, I want to do some semantic based comparison, that means that it is time to use the equals method. And also I would like to point out over here, even Microsoft internally follows this technical comparison and semantic comparison. For example, if you go and if you create a string object, let us say I have a string here, str1. So let us say I create a string object internally like this, with new string, right? Something. So new string and new char. So you can see that I'm creating a string object over here, a string which is having the value as test, right? And let us say I create one more object here, string2, right? And in this also the value is test. Now if I do str1 equal to str2, it will say me that these both are not equal, because this is a different string object and this is a different string object. In case you are confused about that is string object or not, I would suggest to go and watch the 30 minutes video series where we have explained what is a string, what is interning, what is immutable, etc. right? So I would suggest you to go and watch that. But basically a string is an object internally, right? So here now when I say new string, this str1's memory address is different and this str2's memory address is different. So this str1 equal to str2 will show you that both of them are not equal. But if I do a str1 is it equal to str2, but semantically or from the real world perspective, test is equal to test, right? So if you see this now, this equals will return true, but this equal to will return false. So if I do a control F5, you can see over here now str1 equal to str2 is doing the memory pointer comparison and it says that it is false, but str1 dot equals with str2 is doing the content based comparison. So that means semantically he says that both of them are strings and I will compare them on the value and not on the memory address. So even Microsoft follows this concept internally very well, that it uses equals to do semantic comparison between objects. It uses equal to do computer based comparison or technical comparison. Now this was about equality. So in other words, from the perspective of equality, the equal to and dot equals are having these differences. But there is one more difference which is very worth noting, is the type checking. If I say now this is string str2, let us say, right, the equal to does a compile type checking. You can see here it says that you are trying to compare a string and object. But while the equals, because it is comparing semantically, he says that I will do this on runtime. So I will do this polymorphically. So you can see that the equal to is does the type checking during the compile time, but the dot equals does it during the runtime. Also, one more thing which is very noteworthy here is that in case if you have nulls, for example, if you have nulls, then the equal to still works, but the dot equals will crash. So you can see now both of these values I've just put null. So if I run this, the equal to will run, this will work, but this dot equals will crash. You can see over here it is crashing. You can see this dot equal to has returned true, that null is equal to null, but when it came to using the equals method, it gave me a null reference exception. So again, very worthwhile difference, that basically if you have nulls, then probably equal to will pass for all the cases, but then dot equals can fail. So if we just summarize what we have learned, equal to is does technical comparison. It is meant for technical purpose, while dot equals is meant for semantic purpose. Equal to is an operator, okay, and dot equals is a polymorphic overloaded method. So it has the object oriented programming concepts, right? Both equal to and dot equals behave exactly same until you go and you override the dot equals, right? So both of them are same in almost all the cases, leaving the string case. If you remember the string case, in string case, there is a possibility that both of them will behave differently. When I say differently, means in the case of strings, the dot equals will try to compare on content, while the equal to will try to do a comparison on the internal memory reference. If there are null issues, if you have data which is null, right, in comparison, then the equal to will work for almost all the situations, but the dot equals can crash. And the last point is that equal to does a compile time type check, while the dot equals does a runtime type check, right? So in short, if I summarize, start with equal to. Don't even bother about dot equals until you get into custom semantic comparison. If you are having custom semantic comparison, and if it is an object comparison, then definitely you need to go and override the equals method and use it. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. In this video, we were trying to understand what is the difference between equal to and dot equals. Now I would suggest that you watch 2 videos more after this, because these are very much connected videos. One video is about equal to, not equal to, dot equals, and get hash code. So there is one big video, which discusses about these 4 things. So I would suggest go and watch that video. And second, I would suggest you to go and watch the video of value design pattern and entity design pattern from the design pattern section, because both of these videos are very much connected with this video. Because with this knowledge, you would like to more expand further, and you would like to say that, okay, what are the other situations which needs to be looked into, or which needs to be known when I talk about equal to and dot equals. But overall, this was the gist of the video, that when to use equal to and when to use dot equals. So I hope that you enjoyed, and thank you very much.